Mercy. Those are touching. And the velocity's back up where it should be. Woo! And both shots were 30-31 on the way down and the way back. And they're touching. It's pretty good. Alright, we're out here on the range. We're set up at 100 yards, and we're going to start by testing the seating depth we were using, which was about 7 thousandths jump. I think it was 1.940 to ogive. We're going to start with that, and then we're going to jump seating depths. We're going to jump in 6 thousandths increments until we find something we like, and then we'll probably test on either side of it to see if we can find another seating depth to go with it. And we're testing from 1.940 in 3 thousandths increments all the way down to 1.882, and so that's whatever that is. I think it's 60 thousandths that we're testing. We started at 7 thousandths jump, so we're testing out to about 67. Hopefully we'll find 2 seating depths in there that she likes. And we're not only looking at group size but also point of impact. We want to try to find 2 in a row that have a very similar point of impact, so they're not drastically shifting where they're hitting. On the cardboard, we got our storyboard down there, got the Regal M2 along to get some video footage down there in case we have anything that we really want to show you that we find interesting or get a really good group down there. Got the lab radar with us. I think we're about ready to get started. So last time we were out, we decided we were going to go with 27.7 grains at N540, and last time we were here that kind of put us in the 3030, 3035 foot a second range. So we should be somewhere around there today. These are all the same charge weight, obviously, so we'll see what we get. I think we're ready to get started. Looks great. That looks really good. I didn't feel super steady, but it's still right in there with the other 2. It went just underneath the other 2, and they're all touching, so it's worth shooting the adjacent one on that one, I think. All right, so we're back at the bench here. How did that go? Well, this discussion is going to be a little more lengthy, but I think it's going to be worth your time. You're going to learn something, so let's put our helmets on and strap in. So, what did we do? We tested seating depth, and we went and I ended up having to do 2 trips. One of them I didn't get on film, but went the first time, and we shot our original seating depth, which was 1.940 to ogive, and got that nice little trio. The problem is what we're looking for is we tested this in 3 thousandths increments. So 1.940, 1.937, 1.934, and so on. What we want is at least 2 in a row that shoot really well. Well, the problem is I work my way down the board here. I shot 1 round here, skipped this one, shot 1 there, skip, shot, and so on. And if I found something that looked promising, I would shoot the adjacent one, or adjacent seating depths, both of them. And what I was looking for was 2 to 3 seating depths in a row that not only shot well, but also hit in the same place. And what I ran into was every one, either the adjacent one didn't shoot well, or there was a big point of impact shift that led me to not pursue it further. So, long story short, what ended up shooting the best was the seating depth that I originally started with on, I think it was test number 4, where we first got into the hand load, and I said we were going to start at 7 thousandths jump. That one shot the best. And I tested all the way down to like 67 thousandths jump. And still, 7 was the best. So the problem was I didn't have anything longer than that getting closer to the lands. Now, this barrel has 590 rounds on it, almost 600 rounds. So where the rifling was, or where the lead was, throat, whatever you want to call it, where that was when we started back in at the beginning is not where it is now. Where's the throat now? I don't know. I don't care. The point is that it's partially burned out to some degree. We don't know how much, and it really doesn't matter. But it's not where it was. So we know we can go longer. How much longer, I don't know. So that's what this is. So I came home and loaded these, and this was 1.940, as I said. This was 937. So what I loaded was 938, 940 again, 942, 944, and 946. So on paper, this one was only 1,000th jump from where the throat used to be. I didn't want to go any farther than that. And what I ended up doing was I shot these round robin like I do everything. So I shot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 4, 1, 5, 4, 2, 3, 1, 5. I just shot them, random like that. So that way it wasn't always in the same order. And I found that when you do that, you spread out not only your fatigue, but you spread out wind conditions, you spread out how good you're doing as a shooter, you spread out heat in the gun, you spread out all the variables, and if you spread it out like that and it still shoots, you got to load. So what did we find? Well, in English, what we found is all 4 of these seating depths, 38, 40, 42, and 44, all of these 5-shot groups are 5/8 of an inch. All of them. They look a little different, but that's just the way random distributions work. What that means is that this rifle is centered, approximately a 1/2 inch down and approximately a 1/4 inch over at 100 yards. And those shots are all going to hover around that center point. Now, if I kept shooting groups, with these, they would all look something like that, but they'd all be approximately in that place. And that's what we're looking for, is we're looking for a load that not only shoots well from one seating depth to the other, but it's not moving around. So you notice down here, like for example, this seating depth shot a really nice trio, but then one seating depth shorter, there was at least a 1/4 inch shift down. And this one, there was at least a 1/4 inch shift left and a slight shift up. Well, we don't want that from one seating depth to the next. These are 3,000ths increments. These are only 2,000ths increments, but still, they're all forming in the same place. And if you remember, we had to let the load down from where it was. It was shooting really well, and that's what I want to talk about next. So what I can tell you about this load is that they're not all in the same hole, but these are really good groups, all things considered, and it's really consistent. And I put all the velocity data in for all of these shots into something called a standard deviation calculator. And what that told me was that, if you remember when we did the pressure ladders and we decided to go with this charge weight, it was 27.7 grains. On one ladder, the velocity was 30-30. On the other ladder, the velocity was 30-37 for that charge weight. Well, I punched all these shots in, and the average was 30-37. So super consistent. And the standard deviation, because I shot so many shots that did climb up, we did have some weird anomaly shots in there that were, so standard deviation was a little over 13. But the standard deviation calculator will give you something called a confidence level, and it's all done mathematically. And with a 95% confidence level, the shot is going to come out of the barrel at 30-37 plus or minus 5.6 feet a second. And 99% confidence level, it'll be 30-37 plus or minus 7.4 feet a second. What does that mean in English? It means it's really consistent. So being that we have that much seating depth forgiveness and really consistent velocity at 30-37, I'd feel confident stretching this load out. What I would probably do is, what you want to do in an instance like this is you want to take the longest seating depth you're comfortable with. So we had 2 bullets in that hole and 3 down here. So as we get closer to the rifling, it's starting to open up. Like it wants to shoot, but it's kind of starting to open up. So what I would do is I would probably use this seating depth, which is 1.942 to ogive with my comparators. Or I would use 4.3, somewhere in there. Either halfway between these two or this one. Because as the throat burns out, then what's going to happen is you're slowly migrating this way. If you watch my video I did called My Hand Load Doesn't Shoot Anymore, I talk about this, about how as the throat burns out, you need to adjust your load. Well, what that means is that as the throat burns out, you know, you're still shooting 1.942, but it's acting like 1.938 or 39 or 40 because the throat is not where it used to be. So then what you'll have to do is, you know, you shoot a couple hundred rounds or 300 rounds with this load. Then, like I showed in the video, you go back and you test this load, and this load, and now you'll see, you know, maybe this seating depth or this seating depth will look like that. Now that's your seating depth, and you run that for a couple hundred rounds or a few hundred rounds, and you just keep following it as it migrates. So what is this? This is something that I saw on another gun channel by a world champion F-class shooter named Keith Glasscock. He's a tier 1 F-class shooter, and he has a channel. He talked about this, where there's different types of precision nodes. And this is the way he explained it, so I'm not going to take credit for it, but I thought it was brilliant, and I found this too in my testing, so I wanted to share it with you. What this load is, so I guess let's start with what this is. Precision nodes. This is a spectrum. This little bar chart is a spectrum. This on this end represents minimum pressure, so like your starting charge. This represents maximum pressure on this end. And what's on here are the different types of nodes. So right here, there's a number 1 node, which we'd call a daily driver, which is going to be super reliable. The performance isn't stellar, but it's good, like this, where it's nothing to write home about, but it's consistent and it will be reliable. And when you stay down here, which what we're dealing with, you're going to get much better brass life down here. It's not going to shoot the wallet groups that you want to carry around and show your buddies, but it will shoot like this all the time. And then number 2 is what we would call the sports car, and that's over here, which is I think where we were before when we were at 28.46 grains, and I shot that little half-inch group at 200 yards. So it was this size group, but it was at 200, not 100. Well, that we would call the sports car, where the reliability is a little worse, but the performance is better. And it's faster, because it's higher up on the pressure scale. So there's trade-offs. Can it shoot better? Yes. Does it do that all the time? Probably not. And your brass life is going to suffer. So our daily driver right here, we're at 30-37. This was about 31-37, 31-40, something like that. I've noticed for cartridges this size that these
precision nodes from the daily driver to the sports car are usually about 90 to 100 feet a second apart. For a different size cartridge, they're going to be different. You're just going to have to learn this through experience, unfortunately. But for cartridges this size, 223, 22 Nosler, stuff like that, they're about 90 to 110 feet a second apart. So that's where we were, was this sports car node. Then we have the top fuel dragster nodes. And what those are incredible performing loads that I call them any given Sunday loads. What that means is on any given Sunday, they can shoot the best group you've ever shot in your life. But then you might take it out the next 3 times. It shoots poorly enough that you're thinking there's something wrong with your setup, the gun, the scope's loose, something broke, blah, blah, where it'll shoot, the group will open up to 4 times what it normally is. And you're like, well, what's going on? Well, you just happen to find a load that shot perfect under the conditions you were in. And now the next time you go to the range, the conditions are different for whatever reason. And you can't explain why it's not shooting anymore. Well, where Keith has found those and where I found those too is there's usually 1 or 2 in the middle here between the daily driver and the sports car where they group incredibly small, but there'll be something about them. Either they won't do it all the time, or the velocities will be all over the place, or the velocities will be different from one range trip to the next. And then there's another top fuel dragster node up here at the top, and this is right before you start popping primers or getting hard bolt lift or blowing primers, stuff like that, where you are right on the ragged edge of pressure, and it will shoot the best groups you've ever shot in your life there, and they'll be crazy fast, but they're super unreliable, and your brass life is horrible. So we had a node up there too. I'm using, let's use 31-inch barrel numbers because that's our best reference so far in this series. These would have been somewhere in the 30-60 with a 31-inch barrel for the daily driver, about 3150, 3160 with the sports car. And this one, we did have a Vidivori load up there, and that was in the 3190 range. And you say, okay, well, 30 feet a second between them, 60 feet, well, it's about 100 between these two, but then maybe only 40, 50, 60 feet a second between the sports car and the top fuel. What's the difference? Half the brass life? Maybe 33% to 50% less brass life? Because I've talked about this in other videos that as pressure escalates, brass life drops dramatically. So, this might be a 54,000 PSI load. This might be a 60 or a 61. And this might be a 66 or 68. Well, 61 to 68 can cut your brass life in half. It doesn't sound like that much of a difference, but when you get up around 68, 70,000 PSI, that brass is flowing like water, and pretty soon the primer pocket's loose after 2 firings or 3 firings, and the brass goes in the trash. Now, if you don't care about brass, have at it. But we're trying, like I said in other videos, we're trying to turn this into a product that we can sell to customers, and we don't want to put them into something where they're going to be chewing through brass like it's free, because this brass is almost $1 a piece. So we're probably going to want them somewhere down in here, and I think what we'll do is try to present customers with a daily driver node and a sports car node, and they can decide how important brass life is to them. And then if they want to try to find a top fuel dragster node at their own risk, have at it. So I know this bench discussion was a little bit long-winded, but I thought it was important. This isn't common information. So you're not going to find this just anywhere. And I've noticed this in my experience. I've also seen other high-end shooters that are sharing information like this. And I think it's important to get out there because I don't think a lot of people know about it. So I wanted to share that with you. I thought you'd find that interesting. Where do we go from here? Well, this brass, we've been using the same 100 pieces of brass, and this 100 pieces is just about toast. I think we have 6 firings on it. We started out running some, top fuel pressures because this is a new cartridge for us. We didn't really know what to expect or where we needed to be. I made educated guesses. Well, we ran some top fuel loads in that brass, and it shortened the life of it. So I think what we're going to do, if we found a daily driver load early on and we ran that for the whole time, we might get 8-10 firings out of the brass. So I think that's what we're going to do is we might shift and try a different powder, because now that I'm seeing how this is going and how the brass is, I'm learning too as we go through this. I don't know anything about the 22 Nosler. This is all virgin territory for me. So I'm learning too. So what I'm learning is that we can't lean on this brass. The cartridge is still capable of high performance, but we have to weigh that with brass life. Nosler's our only choice. We don't have any other options, so we're stuck with it. So we have to take the good with the bad. It is on the expensive side. It is on the soft side. It's not lasting as long as Lapua or something like that for how I'm treating it. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to get another 250 pieces of brass, just virgin brass, and I'll process those. And I think what we're going to do is, in an effort to get somewhere above that 30-30, 30-37 neighborhood, I think we're going to try N550. So initially when we started this with video 4, I thought N550 might be a little too slow. But at the time I didn't know that this case, once it was fired and then sized and bumped back 2000s, the water capacity is 37 grains. A normal 223 is 31. An Ackley is 32. Well, this thing's 37. So I think it has a lot more capacity than, well, I know it has a lot more capacity than I initially thought, but I think it has more capacity than is optimal for N540. And of course Varget, because N540 is slower than Varget. So more case capacity means we need to go slower on the burn rate chart, not faster. So what's slower than N540? Well, we have a few options. I'm looking at my burn rate chart up here, and I think our best option above 540 would be N550, N150, maybe H4350, but I think H4350 is a little on the bulky side comparatively. It's slower than N550. I mean, it's faster than N550, meaning N550 should get more velocity and should take up more space, but it doesn't. N550 is less bulky than H4350, so I don't know that 4350 is going to be an option. Anyway, I think I'm going to get the new brass, not size it, but prep it, and I think I'm going to try a pressure ladder like we've been doing with, or 2 pressure ladders with N550, and see if we can get to this kind of velocity, this 30-37 to maybe 30-60 or 30-70 or 30-80, but at these same pressures, because that's going to extend our brass life and make it so that you guys aren't cycling through brass like crazy. So I think I'm going to try that, because I can always come back to this and maybe try different neck tensions on the brass and see if we can tighten that up a little bit, maybe tighten up the velocity numbers a little bit. So this wasn't wasted effort. We know that this shoots. We can always come back to it. And at the end of the day, once we're done with this test platform, we're going to check these loads in an actual product rifle that is going to be in its final form, and that's going to probably change this slightly. So it doesn't do us any good to make the load perfect, because once we put it in the actual gun that it's going to be in with the right action, the right barrel, the right taper, the right everything, it's probably going to be different. So anyway, thanks for following this along. I know that was kind of long-winded, but we've just been chewing on all this information. I wanted to get it out there so you guys are up to speed with where we're at and what's going on and what we're thinking going forward. I think this is a good daily driver load. We can probably make it better by playing with neck tension, but I think we're going to try N550 to get in this velocity neighborhood or maybe a little higher with less pressure and extend the brass life. So that's what we're going to try. That will probably be the next video, I'm guessing. We'll still be at the 28-inch barrel length. But I'm thinking that's what we're going to do next. So thanks for watching. Like this video, subscribe if you're not already, and share it with any of your friends that you think might find it interesting. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you on the next video.